So why did I mess up big time? Let me break down Bitcoin's biggest problem for you. There are a couple of issues, sure, but the real kicker is you can't just pass it down. Imagine I've got my Bitcoin private key set up like this. I make that private key, right? And I stash it in a book as a bookmark. Then bam, I get hit by a car and I'm gone. Could totally happen, yeah? Stuff like that happens out of nowhere. So my Bitcoin, it's not going to my wife or kids. They'd have to flip the whole house upside down to find it. But here's the thing, do they even know I've got Bitcoin? If they do, maybe they'd start digging. But what if they don't even know it's there, right? So they're searching with no promise they'll find it. It's quite uncertain. Plus, how would they figure out some random scribble is the private key? To regular folks who aren't tech wizards, it's obvious this inheritance thing is a mess. That's why when banks step in with custody services, older folks who want to jump into Bitcoin, older folks who want to jump into Ethereum, they pretty much have to hand it over to a bank to keep it safe. And that's mostly because of inheritance headaches. That's one of the big reasons. Because if the bank's got it, it just slides right over to your heirs, no fuss. The government's happy too, because they can snag some inheritance tax off it. But okay, say someone's dead set on dodging that inheritance tax or whatever. They've been plotting this for ages, trying to sneak around it. Or maybe they're thinking about divorce. So if that divorce goes down, they don't want their spouse to have a clue about how much cash they've got stashed, even their own spouse. For them, it's not even about inheritance anymore. It's all about keeping their wealth a secret from their spouse. So here's the move, just do what I did. Not that I planned it that way or anything. Because back in 2014, when I was geeking out over Bitcoin, this super smart Scottish lawyer blew my mind. He'd done his research and was like, Bitcoin? It's divorce money, mate. That's what he dropped. And honestly, no one's nailed Bitcoin's vibe as spot on as that Scottish lawyer. He totally got it, 100%. Now, my wife, total Bitcoin novice back then, she finally leveled up from beginner status. In February 2021, 2 years back, she figured out I had Bitcoin stashed. She said, what happens when you die? You know, those big what-if chats. So I was like, fine, I'll set up an address for you. But you're not going to keep it safe yourself, I said. So just lock it in your brain. I'll make it something cool you'll actually remember. So I whipped up something she could keep in her head. Something that'd stick with her, that crazy 64-character hexadecimal code. I turned it into one letter repeated over and over. Because if it got too tricky, she'd totally blank on it. So I stuck with one letter all the way, then just tweaked the end a bit. Like, for instance, I slapped my wife's initials on the end, or maybe tossed in our kids' initials too. That's how I mixed it up. And bam, I made a few wallets like that. So I told her, hey babe, if I ever bite the dust, don't sweat the other stuff. Just head somewhere, brush up on Bitcoin real quick, then punch in this string of letters, and at the end, here's the plan we'll roll with this. Just do it like this. And boom, the cash will be waiting there. That's how I broke it down for her. But honestly, I was still kind of freaking out. Like, will she even remember this? I started second-guessing myself. So I figured, why not jot down a little family-only clue on a sticky note or something? Not the actual private key, no way. Just a sneaky hint instead, and stash it somewhere low-key, maybe in my diary or something. Or how about the first edition of my book, Bitcoin Was Strong? You know, the one chilling on our shelf at home? That's where I should scribble it down. So while I was mulling that over, I went ahead and sent it there. 3 whole Bitcoins. Dropped 3 Bitcoin right into that address, because that's her stash, you know? So I sent over what I'd earmarked for her in my head. I told her, okay, there's this thing called a private key. You just punch in this 64-character code, but I know that fries your brain. So just type the letters I gave you, and tweak the end like this. That's how I set it up for her. Then about a year passed. A whole year later, I started wondering about that wallet. What happened to the Bitcoin sitting in there? So I peeked in, and guess what? A transaction popped up from 6 months ago. I'm like, wait, did I move that? So I started digging into the trail, and it looked like it bounced through some foreign exchanges. Did my laptop get hacked or what? My brain went into overdrive, sweating bullets, total freakout mode. And this wasn't back in 2014 or 2015, this was 2019. Fast forward to January 2020. Yep, January 2020. I'd made that wallet for my wife in 2019. Back then, 1 Bitcoin was about $8,000. So we're talking $24,000 total. Then I started Googling news, and bam, it hit me what went down. Hackers from places like Russia and Ukraine had cooked up these programs, just spamming random letter combos to crack private keys. They'd brute force their way in, but they'd start with addresses that looked meaningful like mine. If they found Bitcoin, yes, they'd snatch it. Looking back, it took them 6 months from when I set it up. Half a year later, they cleaned it out. For them, it was like hitting the jackpot. I was legit losing my mind, pulling my hair out. Since jumping into Bitcoin, I've had some rough patches, felt down and out plenty, but that was the moment I wanted to bawl. I seriously wanted to cry. Didn't though, wanted to so bad. But man, can you imagine how crushed I felt? These ruthless jerks, right? Just sniffing around addresses till they strike gold. All right, listen up. Your Bitcoin private key setup. It's got to be totally random and meaningless. That's what keeps it safe. Because the computers those hackers use, they're not your average laptops. We're talking millions of guesses a second. It's nuts. Total madness. They just let those machines rip like crazy. But if I'd gone full random with mine, it would have been rock solid safe. Your random addresses, safe too, no matter how beastly their tech is. Cracking a true random key takes 100 years, maybe 200 years or more. You're not stashing your coins for a century. That's not the plan, right? So you're probably good. But if you start tossing in meaningful words and dumb it down like I did, you get jacked, like me. Anyway, tons of you ask how to store Bitcoin, and I've got this horror story to share. So what should you do? You're probably wondering that right now. Truth is, there's no magic fix. This idea of perfect security, it's a pipe dream, sadly. Because we're stuck in the real world, you know. You could use wallets from exchanges. Just roll with those. Sure, exchanges can get hacked, but if they do, they might cover your losses. Now, if you're like me, all philosophical, never trust an exchange, you say. That's not what Bitcoin's about. So you make your own keys, DIY all the way. Say you use something like bitaddress.org. What if someone slipped in? Like a sneaky program snapping pics of every key you make. Could happen, in theory. So when you download that address, it may have already been compromised. Sure, bitaddress.org says, no issues here. And yeah, no crashes yet. But that's just so far. It's still possible, trust me. And then, what if someone slips a Trojan onto your PC, and when you're messing with your keys, they're secretly running your system? So skip the computer like I did. Grab some Dyson coins. That's the OG way to make addresses. But yeah, even that's got its risks, huh? It's a pain and kind of messy. Even if you nail it, the danger's still there if you goof up like me. That's the real trap. You could whip up a QR code, stick it on paper, but paper burns, or hardware wallets. People swear by those. The gadget's probably solid, but here's the catch. What if it gets wet or fries? Tech's got its quirks, another hassle to deal with, right? So at the end of the day, most folks will just hand it off to someone they trust. Let them hold the keys. That's the vibe I see coming. Regular people, they're miles from Bitcoin's philosophy, way off the deep end. Most will park it with banks or grab some ETFs, own it secondhand. That's how it'll play out. Or just leave it on exchanges. But me and a few diehards, the philosophical Bitcoin crew, we'll keep DIYing our addresses and stashing our own coins. But nah, I wouldn't tell everyone to do it. It's a ton of work, and you might get burned like I did. Sure, my mess was a weird one, but seriously, go full random with your keys. That's safe. You can hold it forever. But even if it's random, don't slap it online somewhere. Email it to yourself, thinking you'll grab it overseas once it's online, every time you need it. It's a total drag. Typing 64 characters? Brutal. Yeah, base 58 shrinks it a bit, makes it shorter, but still a chore. Plus, upper and lowercase, I strain city. Mix those up. One typo and you're toast. So you type it out, save it on your phone, or toss it in the cloud. That's just as bad as an exchange. Same risk, different flavor, right? At least exchanges might bail you out. They'll take the hit sometimes. But you stick it online and lose it, get hacked. Who you gonna cry to? Nobody. So keep it offline. Write it down like I did. That's the gold standard. But real talk, who's actually doing that? So yeah, I'm not pushing it. Bottom line, your storage, it's gotta fit your life. But no method's locked in for 5 or 10 years. Long-term's a gamble. Nothing's bulletproof forever. So every year, or every couple years, check your setup. Stay on top of it.
다음 영상에서 뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다.